4 minutes after the hour, America, Hugh Hewitt, joined now by Carly Fiorina, which marks the 145th interview I've done with a would-be GOP nominee since the first Republican debate. Carly Fiorina, welcome back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Thank you, Hugh. Wow, you've been counting. I'm flattered.
I did that
145 times.
145 interviews with GOP debates. I believe you have the leading number, but nevertheless, today's breaking news is right in your alleyway. Convened to investigate Planned Parenthood's trade in baby parts, a grand jury in Houston today, instead of indicting Planned Parenthood, indicted two anti-abortion activists who made the videos. Your reaction?
Yeah. Well, this is why it's a fight. This is why it's a fight for the character of our nation. I mean, we know for a fact, because of Planned Parenthood's own announcement, that they would no longer accept payment for what they call fetal tissue, that they were, in fact, trafficking in baby body parts. So, guess what? I'm not going to sit down and be quiet. As I said at the March for Life in Washington, D.C. on Friday before the snowstorm descended, I will not sit down and be quiet. I know the value of life. We know what's going on, and I will continue to stand for the character of this nation.
Now, I don't know anything about Harris County District Attorney Devin Anderson. I do know that the district attorneys of Texas have been remarkably political, but Rick Perry appointed Devin Anderson. So one tends not to believe she's a Democrat. I don't know how anyone can indict. You might not indict Planned Parenthood if there's not enough evidence, but how can you indict filmmakers and journalists?
Well, I don't know. You know, from what I've read, somehow the charge is that they falsified government identities. If that's true, obviously, that's not good. But I only know what I read at this point. But I think it's pretty clear that we now know what goes on in Planned Parenthood clinics. And so is it your position that the indictment of the filmmakers in no way goes to the efficacy of what they produced? Here's what I know. Planned Parenthood has been trafficking in body parts. Planned Parenthood has been altering late-term abortion techniques for the specific purpose of harvesting body parts. In a President Fiorina budget, there will not be a single dime for Planned Parenthood.
All right, now, Carly Fiorina, we'll come back to that as we learn more about what the grand jury did or did not do in the days ahead. We are a week from Iowa. How do you spend the last 6 days as you try and rally support for those caucuses?
Well, I am, as we speak, driving across Iowa on Highway 80 through a snowstorm to get to Council Bluffs for a town hall meeting tonight. So what I'm going to be doing in this last week is talking to every Iowan I can.
Are people's minds still not made up? This is, as I said, I've done 145 interviews. I'll bet you everyone in Council Bluffs done 146.
Well, people's minds are still not made up. Every single town hall I go to, people come up to me at the end and say, okay, I've made up my mind now, I'm caucusing for you. So people are not yet decided, and I think, you know, we forget that it's this way every time. Iowa caucus goers, New Hampshire primary voters, they decide late, and they are this time too. Which is why the polls are the polls, and the pundits are the pundits, and the media is the media, and the establishment is the establishment, and in the end, it's going to come down to votes.
On Friday's program, I interviewed former Secretary of Defense Gates, and I asked him about former Secretary of State Clinton's server, and he said that is of concern to him. He also said there is a high degree of probability that the Russians compromised that server. I know you agree with both of those statements, but do you think that is making an impact on the American people? Do they care? Can she run if she's indicted, Carly Fiorina?
Well, let's certainly hope not. I hope she will be indicted. I don't have a lot of confidence, frankly, that she will be indicted. I mean, let's remember what happened at the end of last week. You know, suddenly the State Department says, well, we need another month to produce all this, and there's a snowstorm, and isn't it convenient that a month pushes everything past the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire primaries? I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm very suspicious, just as 75% of the American people now think the federal government's corrupt. I agree with them. So I don't have a lot of faith in this system. Do the American people care? I certainly hope so, but I will continue to say that the only way to hold Mrs. Clinton truly accountable is on a general election debate stage, and that I will do.
So you think that the State Department used the snowstorm as an excuse to withhold the emails they ought to have produced last week?
Well, that's what they said. They said, we need time. There's a big snowstorm. We need a month. I don't know what a snowstorm had to do with a month, but they linked the snowstorm, the delay, and the month in their statement.
All right. So now a question which very few people in the Republican primary can answer other than you. I don't know that anyone else other than you had SAP SCI clearances ever in their career. I just don't know. But based upon what you know of SAP SCI clearances, is it possible for her not to have known she was receiving that category of information and storing it on her server improperly?
I don't think it's possible for her not to have known. If she claims she did not know, then she is grossly incompetent. So this is either negligence, incompetence, or worse, what I've said all along, that she did this because she wanted to cover her tracks.
Carly, with Fiorina, when you were on the advisory board at the CIA, how did you receive communications from them, which again would have contained information of this sort of sensitivity?
Oh, I did not receive communications from them on my device. I had to surrender my devices every time I went into the CIA. Much of what we talked about had to be spoken about in a SCIF, in a secure facility within the CIA. I mean, I can remember having personnel discussions at the CIA about operations, and we had to go into a SCIF to have those conversations. That's why it's inconceivable that she didn't realize. And if her staff were for some reason removing these labels, then, you know, the problem goes much deeper.
It does indeed. Carly Fiorina, we will talk again before Iowa. Thanks for joining me on the road. Drive safely over to Council's Bluffs. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm coming right back. A little bit of Donald Trump talking to Wolf Blitzer minutes ago about he's got a laser-like focus on Ted Cruz. Austin Goolsbee, President Obama's former chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, joins me. A Democratic congressman, Tim Ryan, joins me. E.J. Dionne, Jonathan Alter. Democrat Day. And, of course, Rick Santorum will come along, interview number 146 of would-be GOP nominees. Stay tuned. There's lots ahead on today's Hugh Hewitt Show.